Hey everyone, it's Les from Comfortable Shoes Studio. Welcome to another episode of Art Making. In this video, I am working from a photo from Earth's World on Instagram. You should definitely go and check out their photos. They're fantastic. They're great sketching material. Great place to kind of explore what faces look like on a whole variety of very real people. So in this video, I showed the pen and I showed the ink. I am using this is a Wing Sung knockoff of a Moonman fountain pen. It is an clear acrylic pen with a regular fountain pen nib, but it is the right size to modify to use a flex nib. So a lot of artists are swapping out certain pens with a Zebra G nib for really, really flexible drawing like you can get with a dip pen. Unfortunately, I fouled up my nib and my Zebra G nib and broke it. I did this after I had modified the feed in the pen for extreme ink flow to keep up with the Zebra G nib. And because I fouled up the Zebra G nib, I grabbed the original nib, modified it with a Dremel so that it's a little more flexible. It's got a little bit of bounce, not a whole lot. And then, we'll see how that works out. And you'll see in this video that I have some pretty severe skipping issues with this pen, and I don't think it's the feed modification. I actually think it's the nib it's a little malformed. Sometimes, these cheap Wing Sung pens, Jinhao, whatever the cheap pens you're buying off eBay, sometimes the nibs are wonderful and they're super smooth, great for sketching, and sometimes you get a bum nib. I think in this case I got a bum nib, and while that is a bummer, it's fine because this pen was under $2 and I was intending to swap out the nib that comes with it with that Zebra G nib. So yeah, that's kind of what we're doing. So I'm using the pen filled with platinum carbon black. It is a deeply black fountain pen safe ink. I really like it. It's waterproof. It's a little, or depending on where you get it, it can be a little spendy. So I always keep a full bottle of it on hand because it's just a really great black ink. I don't believe it's going to be fully waterproof on this paper. I should probably test it out and see. But the area where there's acrylic ink, the ink can't bond to the actual paper. Kind of the acrylic ink creates a little bit of a seal on the page, which works really great with a lot of different pens. But I think with this particular ink, it's just not going to be bonded, so it's not going to be waterproof anymore. So the thing that I want to chat about for the remainder of this video is the impact of stress on creativity. So on my other channel, I've got a video coming out where I talk about how I've got something really stressful going on in my life. And I can't talk about it online because it's an ongoing situation. It should be resolved relatively quickly, but it is a stressful thing. And so one of the things that I have found as I'm dealing with stress in my life, it really filters out into all aspects of my life. And I am a mental health counselor and an art therapist. Art therapy is my specialization. It's one of the reasons I quit doing so many YouTube videos years ago. It's because I had gone to grad school, and in grad school, it basically said you can't have an online persona. You can't be online and be a therapist, which we know is shenanigans. But anyway, so one of the areas of research, one of the areas I spent a lot of time reading about when I was in grad school is the impact of stress on creativity. I'm not an expert, but I'm pretty well versed. And it's always interesting that I, as a creative person who's done all of this research, has these moments where I don't recognize how stress is impacting me in my life. Sometimes it's like I have to have it be hit over the head with things, or have conversations with my friends about things for me to have the epiphany. It's like, oh, yeah, I'm really super stressed out, and that makes me not want to be creative. Um, and the thing that I've really been dealing with, and so last week and the week before, life just got away from me. I was dealing with this stressful issue, and when I turned around to do recording, it's like, wow, I am exhausted. Also, I don't feel like turning on the camera, and legitimately, I forget to turn on the camera pretty often when I'm making art. Um, and it's interesting as I have gone deeper into being a therapist and making art and going to my own therapy. A thing that I found is that I use my art journal less as a place to do um, the deeper sort of exploration of my feelings. I'm doing a lot of that through therapy and in written journaling, which is a tool that I've used for the majority of my life. But when I first started this channel, I was doing a lot of deeper thinking through a visual mean. So as I was drawing and making art, there was a lot of coded messaging in it. And now I don't do that as much. So for me, doing these sketches every morning is a really reflective practice. It's very meditative. And I noticed the more stressed I was, the less likely I was to turn towards the tools that actually work. And this is something that I read through research, is not uncommon for someone when they're stressed. Um, the reason, like one of the reasons we feel stress more deeply is because the tools that work often fall away. And the real impact that I found, other than like feeling stressed all the time, being anxious and worried about things, um, one of the bigger impacts that I found was that I was like my inner critic's head kept rearing up, and just it was the worst inner criticism I'd had in a long time. Using the Danny Gregory metaphor of it being a monkey, my monkey was super loud, screaming and throwing poo. Um, it was really kind of overwhelming when I was thinking about all of this stuff going on. And I, like many anxious people, is staring at the wall. Um, but, the thing that was really starting to get to me was the fact that, my inner critic was being super loud, and this is a sign of stress for me. That inner critic was so loud, and I was having trouble being happy with the videos that I was making. And there was also this sort of sense of like, well, what's the point? Why am I doing this? The channel's not growing, and the channel is growing. People are here when I post regularly. People are here, people are liking and commenting and all of that stuff. And I think, stress, as it filters out into the rest of life, it has that negative impact of allowing the inner critic to get a toehold and their fingers back in a way that, if you've worked on this for a while, you maybe haven't felt in a while. And I can say I certainly hadn't felt the inner critic so deeply as I have in the last 3 weeks, which is funny because I'd really worked hard on bringing my channel back and having a regular posting schedule. Also, like the other side of it, the stressful thing that I've been dealing with has really sort of taken up a huge amount of my personal time. And as I'm making these videos and stuff, this is, my personal time that I am, using to do this. I'm making a choice that I want to make these videos. I want to delve back into video editing. And and it's just kind of like, hey, here's something that I know helps me deal with stress, but the stress itself is undermining my ability to do this. And that's so mind-blowing once you are able to put a pin on that and put your finger on it and say, stress is causing me to do X, Y, and Z, and those are things that I really want to do. So I got to deal with this stress. How do I deal with the stress? Well, I deal with the stress by making art, but the stress is making me not want to make art. It's the Ouroboros of the snake eating its own tail, and that's stress. It's an insidious, nasty thing that happens. Um, and I personally have, I've always had a hard time in coping with stress and how it rears up in my life. And the fact that it takes me a hot minute to identify the source of the stress. And now that I've identified the source of the stress, it is going to be resolved. And over the next month or two, we're going to see that stress reduce, and hopefully my ability to make videos should increase. And sometimes, like, this is part of the inner critic really getting into my head. I post these videos of me drawing and making art and talking, and I always wonder, is it good enough? And I know it's good enough. Like, I can tell myself intellectually, yes, it's good enough, but that inner critic is in the back of my head, screaming and acting like a monkey looking for attention. And I'm gonna go back to that Danny Gregory metaphor of the inner critic and that monkey. I always enjoyed talking about the monkey as inner critic because with the monkey metaphor, monkeys do a lot of different things when they're displeased. And one of the things, like, I have a distinct memory as a child of going to the zoo, the monkeys being unhappy, attempting to urinate on us and throwing poo. And we could have conversations about zoos and ethics and all of that, but the idea of an unhappy monkey throwing poo really is a great metaphor for the inner critic, because the inner critic is just all the poo you've heard in your life getting tossed around in the air. And it's yes, it's a gross metaphor, but it's real. um you know and so, like, anytime, like, my inner critic rears up, I start thinking about those monkeys and them just throwing poo. It's BS in the air. um and then thinking about, okay, how do I compost this and turn it into something useful. And I think this is how I do that. You I just need to work through it, obviously, and that's what therapy and conversations with friends are for. And also making change. I think that's the other side of stress, is that it has an impact on my ability to be able to label something as, this is my stressor, and now how do I make it stop? What do I do? How do I move forward? So on and so forth. So I think that's kind of where I'm at right now, is like, I have identified a way to resolve this stressful situation. And now I gotta figure out a way to move forward. And I've made plans to make those changes. And because of that, I'm making art again. And this is also, like, art is very relaxing for me. It's a place where I go to all the time to relax. These morning sketches are a way to just set my day up right. It's sort of like, as I talk about on my other channel, going for a walk before work really does set my day up right and for positivity. And so that's how I'm going to use art. I'm going to set my day up right with positivity and feeling good and all of that fun stuff. So, with that, I'm going to take a moment here to really say thank you to everyone. Welcome to all of my new subscribers. I really appreciate you being here, and I hope you find these videos helpful. If you do, give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, share it if there's anyone out there that you think might find this beneficial, or share it because you enjoy my drawing or whatever. So anyway, just thank you to everyone and all of you for your support. I really appreciate it. Bye.